So welcome to another episode of hashtag Askalobbyist. Today I'm here with Inez Treffers, who's a lobbyist as well. She will introduce herself in a second. And we've had a very interesting question come in, namely, is lobbying a man's world?
This is a man's world!
My first two guests were men. And so I got a very valid question: why are there no women in your show? And it was a coincidence, of course.
Sure.
But let's delve into it. Is lobbying a man's world? Maybe you can introduce yourself and then tell me what you think about that question.
Okay, great, thanks. Well, my name is Inez. I'm a lobbyist in Brussels. I've been working here for 2.5 years, a bit more than 2.5 years now. I work for a Dutch organization, National Employers Confederation. I'm enjoying it very much, so honored to get the invite to speak in your video about the very interesting question, is lobbying a man's world? I don't think that it's a man's world, so my short answer would be no. Just looking at it very practically, there's a lot of women here that have the position of lobbyist. I think I even experience it to be quite equally divided, so I work with as much as men as women. That's my experience.
That's interesting. So basically your observation is that it's about 50-50 in terms of presence, but there's a difference in approach, or how do you mean?
I think this is all very generally speaking, because every individual is different.
Of course.
Yeah, so that...
Let that be known.
Yeah, so that being said, I do feel that women have different skills than men. Lobbying is a very social job.
Absolutely.
For me, lobbying is mostly about building relationships with people, and women have different, soft skills. When you're a lobbyist and you're, in a conversation with someone about some topic, I feel that women are way more aware of letting the other person talk, letting the other person make his point, listen.
First, you need to pay attention. We know this is a bit obvious, but it's the most important part of active listening.
And I feel that women, generally speaking, are better at that than men, because sometimes, don't mean it in a very negative way, but men tend to go to the conversation and they want to make their point.
Men are talking.
But I think a very important skill for a lobbyist is that, okay, you have to make your point, but you have to be very aware of what the other person wants to say and making the other person also able to make his or her points. Then the other person will, I think, in the end, experience the conversation more positively.
Valuable lesson for today. Men, shut up more. Listen.
Well, women are maybe a bit more sensitive, so if they feel if someone is being impolite or if someone not taking them seriously, my confidence would go a little bit lower, and I think men don't often have that experience. They would be even more triggered to prove themselves.
Maybe we're better at hiding it. We have the same challenge where we feel underappreciated or not taken seriously. But you're saying that women, when they feel like they're not taken seriously, they respond differently?
At least I do, because in the last 2.5 years I've sometimes experienced that I would be in a meeting or wherever, and I would feel as if the person sitting across the table is not taking me seriously. Yeah, I kind of even get more nervous or afraid to really express myself.
So how does that manifest itself? How do you tell that people don't really take you seriously?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question, because...
Is it a feeling or is it something they say?
Well, it's mostly a feeling, I think, but it's also small things. So when you're in a large group in a meeting, I've sometimes had the experience where the speaker comes in, and even though I'm the first person to face him, he's first gonna greet all the other more experienced people, and then, oh yeah, she's also there. And I'm not really sure if that's specifically woman's problem. I think younger men would also maybe experience that.
So maybe it's an age thing or an experience thing.
Hard to tell, I think.
So do you think that women are approached differently? For instance, you're working with the European Commission and there's a head of unit, it's a man. Do you feel that he might approach you differently because you're a female lobbyist? Do you think there's a difference in communication or a difference in protocol?
Yeah, I think that sometimes there is, depending on the person, there is a different approach. If I would have been a man, the first contact would be just directly based on content, and maybe if you're a young woman, some people see that as a distraction or don't directly see you as a lobbyist, they see you as a woman first.
I should not have lost my cool.
No, it was my fault. You're a fantastic person.
is it really relevant that I'm a young woman? I'm here to talk about my work.
Do you also see a difference in generations? Older people might be a bit more traditional and see a difference between men and women versus the newer generations that should be more liberal about this and accepting of the fact that this is a 50-50 world?
I think that there's definitely a difference in generations, and I think if you look at the top positions, the situation is good in Brussels. There's a lot of women in high positions, but still it's more men. So there I think it's a bit more unequal, and I think that also says something about how that generation perceives the role of women in this kind of job.
So how do you feel about the fact that maybe Margrethe Vestager might take over as the Commission president? There's been some rumors that she might. So do you think something like that would help in equalizing the working environment even more?
Yeah, I think so, because that's a great example of a strong woman. That's at least how I see her.
You have the biggest horizon. You can go wherever you want to go.
Yeah, she's from a liberal country. I think that she's someone that can actually take the experience that she has in Denmark, which I think is a country that's very well developed in equal position of men and women, and bring that to the EU. The problem is also that women, they feel not fully equipped or brave enough to go for a high position. And I think that if we have more women in top positions, then younger women will get inspired.
If you could change one thing in our profession, what would it be?
Yeah, I mean, to start with, I would like to change a lot of things, maybe, but no, if
You
I
get
have
to change one thing, and one thing
yeah.
only, today.
I get the question. Okay, so I would change the perception of the whole concept, the whole idea of being a lobbyist, because I think outside of our world, a lot of people have prejudices about what a lobbyist is. They have a lot of negative connotations. Maybe they've watched House of Cards or those kind of shows, and they think it's about money. And I get that's also a little bit your thinking behind this whole series, to also make people outside of the lobbyist world aware that we're all trying to create a better policy framework, and it's not about us handing money to policymakers to get our
Yes, exactly. We're lobbyists. You can call yourself many things: consultant, think tank, lawyer. But when you're in the public domain trying to make changes to legislation, you're a lobbyist. There's nothing wrong with it. I think you're right. I think lobbying has a stigma, and it shouldn't have. So kudos for addressing that. Thanks, Inez, for coming today.
Yes, thanks for having me. Hope you enjoyed.
Done.